Hello, everybody, and today we're going to take a quick look into the culture of action and the culture of thinking. Now, these things are essentially, I say, hand me downs from family culture, essentially. So, generally, there's a culture, well, I guess there's three, but we're generally going to talk about those two. The culture of action and the culture of thought. Let's start with action. So people that kind of live in a family where action is important and action is a way of kind of living life, how do they deal with this later on in adult life? Well, these are generally type A people. These people like to get things done. They like to prove things by doing actions. They like to be busy. You could often find them caring for everybody else except for themselves, or working themselves to the bone, or the inability to sit still for a long period of time without getting ready to do another checklist thing. Get more off the list. Oh yeah, tomorrow I need to get this other stuff done too, and it always seems like they're perpetually in motion. Now, we can say essentially that this is an overuse of a way of, let's say, going through life, right? So we don't want to confuse this with the person particularly actively wanting to do this. We can say that this is almost a compulsion. They must do this. And if you make them stay still, they will get up and move around. It's not something that they can kind of deal with being still. This essentially denotes that they're overusing it, that skill of action. Um, Ultimately, we kind of tie some realities together that are not necessarily succinct with each other. This is generally the belief of my actions are my worth, or my action is how I show love, compassion, understanding, whatever. Action is the way to solve all things. These things are kind of tied to action. Action is just action. There's no particularly emotional motivation to it. It is just doing stuff. There are stuff that you have to get done, and stuff like you like to do because you enjoy it. And that enjoyment, again, is our perception of that thing. So we have to be very careful that we don't overdo that, and that we sit down and evaluate why is it that we do all these things. Ultimately, if we want to look at it at a kind of greater spectrum, the need to do these things generally shows that there's something unsettled in that person's life. There's something that's not quite there. They're not sure what it is, but if they keep themselves busy enough, they won't have to think about the thing that's missing. Therefore, they have to confirm that they're doing something positive by continuing the action. This again is a way to cope with internal or external pressure that's greater than the solution that we're employing at the time. So the only way to get out of that is essentially seek some more knowledge, or I should say wisdom on that point, about the topic that's challenging. Just the fact that you know that you should be sitting down more and you should take more rest, and you are that person that has to go, go, go. This is enough to, go to your local self-care professional and allow them to help you take that on more adequately. The idea mainly with that is that when we use so much energy to do these actions, we take away from enjoying life. And we want to enjoy life for as long as we can, so let's be proactive about it, if you want to call it proactive, because at that point it's actually already a thing that's happening and has been happening for a while. So what we're doing is we're trying to stop this thing before it starts to have a physical expression. High blood pressure, heart related things, the things associated with type A personality style stuff, that kind of thing. Ultimately, now let's switch to the thinking hand me down of certain families. And again, actually, I have both sides of this. One half of my family is very much action oriented, and the other side of my family is very much thought oriented. So I am in the middle. And this is probably why I could speak so well about both, because I had to go through both challenges. Okay, so moving on. So the mind thinking one. So in the mind thinking one, that generally means that there's going to be less action, more reflection, more kind of chewing over the thoughts. These people are going to be generally more relaxed, generally waiting before they decide to act. They're going to be very hard to convince of things that they don't particularly have additional information on. They will do the research, they will look it up, they will go into it, and based on that fact, then they will do the action. Again, when somebody overdoes this, we end up in a situation where there's not so much balance, and there becomes a mental challenge, or more mental health starts to suffer, which is again health in general. So then, what is the biggest challenge to this? And I want to make sure that you know, it's not that they want to do that all the time. It is again a generational thing that was passed down and is the way of navigating life that was given to them. Therefore, they use it. Therefore, they go through life with this thing. Again, what we're suggesting is that we reflect on this and say, why do we use it? And if we're using it too much, let's bring it back into balance. Because we can say that thinking about things before you do them is good. But when you overdo it, then it essentially will lead to lack of achievement, because you know the person that overthinks doesn't act, and lots of opportunities will pass by. When you miss out on a lot of opportunities that you essentially in your mind deserve because you're putting in the work, this creates a very negative mindset, kind of a mindset that kind of takes away from the actual reality of things. This can become more melancholic in nature, or it can become more isolating. The isolating factor is the most, say, damaging one. The fact that nobody can understand me, and nobody gets me, so I'm just going to do this thing by myself. And you know, I'm trying so hard, nobody can see that. So why, blah, blah, blah. This again is true. They're doing a lot of things mentally, but we want to shift all that mental energy and have some physical energy in there. We want to complete the cycle of emotional, mental, physical, and then get the returns of that thing, which is kind of a building of one's self-esteem, of one's ability to conquer the things in life that they want to, and achieve things that are enjoyable in life. That's the full spectrum kind of thing. That's what we want to continue that cycle to keep moving. So again, over contemplation. This essentially is the intellectual challenge. Knowing so many things in knowledge is not knowing everything in wisdom, which is not knowing everything in reality. Therefore, we must experience things to bring this thought to life, and therefore see how it pans out in reality. Lots of times we have really great ideas, and that idea is such a large thing, but it seems quite simple because it's in our head. And as soon as we bring it into reality, there becomes a lot more challenges to make through, or to get through. There's a thinker in history, I can't remember right now who it is, but essentially said the idea, the creative part is 1%, and 99% of it is the hard work to make that idea a reality. So that's to put it in perspective for you, so you get the understanding behind why we want to move to the action-oriented thing, and we want the action-oriented person to move to the relaxed, slowing down thing. There's also an emotional component to this, and I don't think I'll get into it in this video, but there is also a way of living in emotions more often than the mind, and more often than the body. And in this way, again, we must also make note that all three of these things are ways of dealing with stressors that are greater than us, in a sense, either externally or internally. Because we don't have the, let's say, full circle of the wisdom that goes along with the challenge that we're facing, we end up being stuck by continually using the same solution. And always when we use a compensation instead of the real thing, we have to overdo it. We have to continually do the thing to prove that it's working. But if we did the original thing, the thing that we're actually missing, and this compensation is trying to show us that we're missing, then it becomes way less, it becomes more relaxed, it becomes more wise, if you will, and needs less action because it's something that is internally fulfilled. So that is what I want to say to that. I think later I might do a video on the emotional realm of this exact same thing, if I get some time to it, or if somebody requests it, I'll also put more energy towards that end. All right, thank you very much for listening.